Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GGG Podcast. I'm Paul, and I am joined, as always, by Phil. We got a great show for you today. A little bit of a slow news week, but some interesting things actually came out, especially a couple of interesting trailers. Particularly Star Wars Outlaws. We finally got a story trailer for it. We're going to talk about it for our main topic at the end of the episode. But before we get into it, Phil, what's going on, and what games have you been playing this week?
Well, Paul, I am very excited to be on the right side of a big news story this week when the Star Wars trailer launched ahead of our podcast and not directly after it, as the way that typically these things work. But I've been good. I've been doing lots of fun stuff. Gaming has slipped a little. We'll talk about this more later, but Helldivers is like my most constant thing. I feel like there was a bit of a lull there. Things have calmed down. And then I played a good amount of Dragon Ball FighterZ today. They released a PS5 version for free if you own the original, so did that. And that game is really fun. Just probably going to sink a few more hours into that.
Right on. I mean, I remember getting into a lot of Dragon Ball games. Like I feel like Dragon Ball games are their own genre.
They are.
They're not even anime games. They're just their own genre of games. So.
Yeah, they 100% have their own vibe, and I love it. I think I don't really jive with a lot of anime stuff, but Dragon Ball Z, that's for me. What have you been playing this week?
I mean, yeah, still Helldivers, but I've been kind of on a bit of a space kick. I think with playing Helldivers so much, like I obviously know the gameplay is not in space, but you are in the Galactic Wars in space, and like I started watching a new Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, and I actually kind of like it, and so I think that has got me in the space. I booted up Starfield, heaven forgive me, and then closed it immediately. But I also opened up No Man's Sky, customized my my flagship a little bit on the interior, because you can customize the look of your ship on the inside, which is nice. So I messed around with that, and I also played some Stellaris with a friend on Sunday. For those people who don't know what Stellaris is, it is an incredibly old, nerdy space like civilization game, and so it's like you're trying to go around from galaxy to galaxy and set your flag down and then interact with intergalactic politics, and it's fun in the way that Civ 6 or any of the Civilizations games are fun, but it takes a lot of time. So yeah, that's been my space adventure.
Very cool. Okay, you're in kind of a weird spacey vibe. I dig it.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I'm into space right now. So, I mean, it's never far from my mind. So
typically, people are outer space. You know what I mean? Hey,
okay, all right. And with that, let's get to the major releases for this week. And there's not a lot of major releases for this week, but we do have a couple things. So first up on the list is Planet Crafter,
a space game.
A space game. It's basically kind of No Man's Sky a little bit, but if the core gameplay was you are designing settlements on different planets and farming resources and crafting, it looks very fun. But yeah, I've definitely seen similar experiences in different games. I didn't hear about this game until today, Phil. Have you heard about this game before?
No. Sort of looking at it, I definitely see the No Man's Sky comparison. I think what seems interesting about it is, like, in No Man's Sky, you can craft bases, you can do all the stuff you're supposed to do. But this seems like you have objectives in doing those things that are given to you by the game, or like, hey, are people going to be able to survive here? Versus in No Man's Sky, you're like, I'm going to put this square base unit over on the edge of a cliff, and hey, look, it works. Like, it's all just sort of for fun, and you can take that design element in No Man's Sky, but this seems like it's part of the gameplay. It is got overwhelmingly positive reviews, which is pretty cool. So for whatever people are wanting to do with it, it seems like it is doing that thing.
Yeah, I mean, crafting games, survival crafting games are very much still in right now.
Hmm.
So, full steam ahead. Good for them. Yeah, happy to see it. All right, what's next on the list, Phil? What else we got releasing this week?
Well, I just found out about this release today. Destiny 2 Into the Light. It's kind of like got a bust into Electric Boogaloo vibe going for me because it's Into the Light. Um, yeah, so this is, I feel like, their last this is like a seasonal update more so than the big update that will be the final shape coming in June. So this seems
Mhm.
like sort of the precursor. Get your stuff in order, get your new gear. I believe Into the Light is also about like if you haven't been playing, a quick way to catch up with everyone else that has been playing.
Yeah,
So
it's. I mean, they kind of do that with every update because
mhm.
they move the goal line every time, and they're like, oh,
Yeah,
all that stuff you got before, it's not as powerful as this new stuff. So, I do know that a big part of the Into the Light update, we'll call it, is they're bringing back a lot of weapons
mm,
that have been very popular within the Destiny 2 community. So that's cool to see. You know, personally, I've gotten a little bit of looter shooter fatigue. And I've kind of been in that boat for a couple years now,
mhm.
where it's just like when you get to the point where you have thousands of different kinds of guns, it's like which ones are actually special.
Yeah,
And so it's nice to see guns that are actually like being designed by the developer. So you have that level of specificity instead of just like we put this gun in our gun generator
yeah.
because it's loot and we need it to be a green or a blue. And
DPS number random. Bullets fired per second random. Uh, I always felt like that about Destiny, specifically Destiny 2, was the exotics were like kind of the main point of the game in terms of guns. Like they were the ones who actually felt different. You would occasionally find the level below exotics that had like interesting mechanics to them, but really you wanted like there was I remember specifically like a chain gun that uh would kind of like get more accurate as you fired it. I was like, okay, this is a new way to play. Or that one gun that was limited fire, but it would explode when you hit people with it. Um, and those made the game feel more worthwhile. But then every now and again, Destiny comes along and is like, hey, do you like those? They're nerfed as hell. They won't do anything. It's like throwing breadcrumbs at the enemy. Enjoy.
yeah, it's
So yeah,
I remember that chain gun that you're talking about, the one that gets more accurate. I specifically remember that was probably one of the first exotics in Destiny 2, if I'm remembering.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, so cool. I'm glad that the game's still getting support. I'm curious to see what happens after the final shape. If the final shape is actually, if they put the word final in there for a reason. So I would hope that they would move on to Destiny 3. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't know that Destiny needs a Destiny 3,
Yeah.
given where the story is, which is kind of nowhere.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, still
I
still
mean,
feel a little betrayed by that franchise, if I'm being
K
honest. So
Cade 6 is coming back for the final shape, so that might be enough to pull me back in, which is sad.
I mean, I guess, but like I thought the whole point of like killing off that character, and I guess that's a spoiler, but it's not like you can replay that anyway now. So
That's true. That's a good...
so yeah, anyway.
Interesting thing, Destiny. But we have a new non-game but gaming-related release this week, and
Oh my
that's
god.
pretty exciting. Paul, do you want to break the news to everyone that you broke
I
to me just
mean,
a little bit
no,
earlier?
you just use your idea, Phil. Let's
Okay.
take the spotlight.
Well, everybody, get excited because there's a new Fallout in town. It's the TV show Fallout, so you know. But it was set to release April 11th. So they've been advertising, but just today, Paul informed me they announced that they're releasing on April 10th, tomorrow, when we're recording the show. Uh, at 6 p.m. and all of the episodes are going to be available at once, which is super exciting for me. Not sure if the show's going to be good, but they've been hitting the right notes so far. So I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I will say like the trailers that I've seen look very good. And I think they're like they definitely have the aesthetic of Fallout. And like, yeah, there are a couple. If I'm gonna get like really complaining, I'm sure I could find like very nitpicky things. But like, given the, a realistic TV show budget, I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
So like, I'm excited for it because it looks good, and I think that we might have brought this up before, but like Fallout, because it's such a narrative driven, it's a Bethesda game, so it's going to be very narrative driven. I think that type of game lends itself more easily to a TV show transition than Halo.
I think it walks a line between like The Last of Us and Halo. Like I think within Halo there's a lot of good narrative, but it's mostly in the books and occasionally pops its head out in a game.
Right.
The Last of Us was like almost shot for shot with some differences that I think were in some senses improvements. Fallout is this interesting thing where it's a setting sort of. It doesn't seem like they're pulling from Fallout 1, 2, 3, 4. It seems like they're like, hey, in the Fallout world, this thing is happening. And I enjoy that because it gives them some freedom. We know that Fallout is a pretty massive setting, and it's a setting that I think a lot of people identify with. The post-apocalypse thing is always fun with like this weird 50s consumerism vibe underneath. They hit something pretty magical with that, and they continue to capitalize on it. So hopefully the show is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We'll find out soon. I am, like you mentioned, I'm excited that they're releasing all 8 episodes just right at once. I feel like streaming services have been moving further and further away from that as a way to entice people to stay subscribed to their service. And so, like, let me watch the show at my pace. If it's just a file for you on your end, like, just upload the darn thing. Like,
just give it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's it in terms of new releases, though. So, I think it's good that we're slowing down because February, March, January just absolutely rocketed right through my wallet.
I know. Although, you know what? Kind of a semi-release this week, and maybe we'll skip the first topic and come back to it. But a semi-release this week is the new Helldivers Warbond is going to be coming out on April 11th. I believe it's Democratic Destruction or something like that. That's what it is. And so, it's not a DLC necessarily, but it's a new Warbond, which is exciting. Lots of new features. So that's coming out. So that's fun. That's nice.
Oh, yeah. Democratic Detonation. It's all about explosive weapons. And the Warbonds in the game are, like, pretty interesting because by now I have about, like, 500 of the medals that you have to spend to buy like in-game stuff. So it's just gonna cost like $5 and that's pretty cool to get some new stuff in a game that I feel like has already eclipsed the $40 that I paid for at launch, in terms of value.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess we should talk a little bit about what's been going on in Helldivers.
Yeah.
So I believe it was on Saturday. Yeah, I believe it was on Saturday that we had demolished the automatons. We successfully pushed them back all the way, and we had captured every planet that they were on to the point that I logged into Helldivers yesterday and I looked at the Galactic War map and I was like, oh my God, there are only 2 planets you can play on right now that are accessible to the war. And so it's like you had to fight the Terminids and you had to fight on one of those 2 planets. And so I was like, this is weird but interesting. I like that they're like saying no more robots, at least for a few days. And then this morning They launched a surprise attack. It's taken over Twitter, all Helldivers stuff. They have launched a surprise attack. They've taken 2 sectors, maybe 3. And we have an unrealistic order to defend 5 planets. I think from when we're recording this, I think there's only like 14 hours left.
Oh, damn.
So we're going to lose some planets.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's really cool. Like, we know we keep talking about Helldivers. Oh God, now there's a car going off.
You're good.
I don't know if, okay.
Oh.
I don't know if you can hear it.
A little bit.
All right. Well, you keep talking about it, Phil.
I'll go punch that car. No. Yes, Helldivers 2. I was so confused about what they were going to do once we had defeated the Automatons. Like, okay, is it time for the next enemy faction, the Illuminate, whatever? We've gotten like these hints that they're out there, and it is created such an interesting social media trend where I see videos on TikTok where people are like, there's actually cloaked ships when you're looking, or when you're on this planet. If you look up, you can see that there's like cloaked ships in the sky, and it's hard to tell like what's a bug in the game. Like, okay, maybe there's supposed to be an asset there, and what is intentional. And I feel like they've created this space where both things are kind of like you could go either way, because one thing could seem like propaganda and one thing couldn't. I love the fact that they've given us also like a big returning force with the robots. It's been interesting because most of the time when I started playing, people didn't want to fight the robots. They were like, oh, bugs. Like, I want to do Starfish Proofers. It's not fun fighting the robots. And now I feel like everyone got on board. After Malevelon Creek. Okay, this is also a weird thing. I feel like there's so many thoughts that I have about Helldivers 2. There's been like infighting building up over creekers and non-creekers. Mm-hmm. Where if you wear the Malevelon Creek cape and show up in a game with randoms, they will either boot you or kill you. And I know that there's a lot of people asking for PvP in the game, but I'm glad that now the Robots Returning has made like, okay, we have a united enemy to be upset about and like fight against. Because at times of peace, apparently the player base starts wanting to kill each other, which is a pretty interesting statement.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten into my arguments over Malevelon Creek. I have similar. I mean, I would never boot anybody or like team kill them or anything like that. But I have a couple friends who like they kept wanting to fight on Malevelon Creek when we were trying to take Tibet, I think it was, and I was pissed off because I logged in and there were like 85,000 players fighting on Malevelon Creek, and I was like, that's not the objective. Why are there 85,000 players? So yeah, those creekers, man.
Those creekers.
But anyway, I mean, all of this speaks to just a magnificent world and the awesome concept of a galactic war being a live service game. And honestly, we've brought it up before again, but it's just like the frequency at which that they are releasing content for the game is pretty darn good. Like, I feel like every 2 weeks we're getting some sort of update. It may not necessarily be like content. I mean, like every month we've definitely gotten new content. But every 2 weeks, I'd say there's some sort of significant update that's happening. It's hats off.
I think on a larger front, they are hopefully changing the face of how live service games are looked at and done. By making it a part of the story, they've made a lot more engaging than, say, like the Suicide Squad Joker release that just happened. We're like, oh, there's a new character. That should ostensibly be enough to bring people back. But because it is just like a reskin for most of the things in it, it doesn't feel interesting. Now that we're part of like this narrative that is unfolding, we all feel a little bit more invested in what's going on in Helldivers 2, the war effort, all these things. So yeah, hats off to them. I hope a lot of people take note. This is how you do a live service. Maybe you hold some stuff back from your release and then just give it out over the next couple weeks for free. I think that was a pretty brilliant plan on their part. So
absolutely. All right. Well, enough Helldivers 2 talk for now, unfortunately.
We'll come back to it in a later episode for sure.
We definitely will. All right. So we got our first look and first official trailer for Ermac, character coming to Mortal Kombat 1. Ermac is a cult classic, a favorite in the Mortal Kombat universe. He was featured in the Mortal Kombat story, the Mortal Kombat 1 story, and which made me a little mad because you could fight against him, but you couldn't fight as him.
That is upsetting.
Instead, that's paid content. And we've been down this road with Warner Brothers and the character pricing and everything like that. So, I'm not going to get too deep into it again. But the character looks cool. I am excited that more content is coming to the game. Something I will note is that a couple sales, particularly the one that I saw was on the PlayStation Network. PSN has Mortal Kombat's character pack, which includes, I believe, 5 characters, something like that. It's got the ones that have come out already. So that's Omni-Man, Peacemaker, and then Ermac's going to be the next one. Homelander's coming down the pipe, and I believe another classic Mortal Kombat character is coming as well. And I saw that instead of at $40, it was for $20 on PSN right now during a sale, which is like, it's the first time that I saw it, and I was like, okay, that's a more reasonable price.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm there. I didn't pull the trigger. I don't know if I'm there yet, but at least, now that we have some characters that are actually released, so I'm not paying for stuff that isn't there yet.
It might be that might be now this is the time to jump in terms of like getting those characters,
Yeah. And like, again, with Omni-Man and Peacemaker already being established and in the game ready to go, like might be a good time to pick it up. But I was thinking about it actually today, and I was thinking like Omni-Man, I get. Homelander, I get. You're doing deals with like Amazon Prime or, other companies connected to them for the rights to put them in your game. But I was thinking about like Peacemaker and the other 2 characters that are Mortal Kombat characters. And it's just like those are all intellectual properties that are already owned by Warner Brothers. So it's like, I feel like those ones, guys, you didn't really need to charge as much. You know, I get that the Invincible people and the, what's the frickin' the boys people, they need to get their cut. But it's like you own Peacemaker. You own Peacemaker. You own Mortal Kombat. What is
just throw them in as added value, please.
Just like, what are you doing?
Mortal Kombat has to be like, I think Warner Brothers' closest thing to Call of Duty, where they know like we have a demographic that is gonna buy this, and it's like young boys and people who used to be young boys. I will say on PlayStation Network, the Mortal Kombat 1 is $34.99 right now. So if you got that and the character pass, you could ostensibly get like the full slate of characters, full game for $55, which is kind of savings. Probably the best time to hop in and pull that trigger if you are wondering about it. So yeah. I'm always excited to see a new character. Like, they put in so much detail to like the animations, and like seeing, really the thrill for me is seeing how these characters interact and how they fight fatalities and like their signature moves that go into the X-ray and show bones breaking. Like, those are just so fun to watch. Kind of excited, but also kind of like, all right, I'll care more when everything's out. Yeah.
Ooh, the character I could not think of before is Quan Chi. Quan Chi, who's like been in many Mortal Kombat games. He, again, another character that was featured in the Mortal Kombat 1 storyline that you fought against, but you could not play as. So let's move on, because there's not much else to talk about with the MK character releases. Eternal Strands, which is a game I did not know existed until recently. Recently did kind of a tech demo showing off their integration, or I should not say integration, but their use of Unreal Engine 5. A lot of games are doing this right now because they're blown away by the tools in Unreal 5, and it looks interesting. It kind of seemed like a cross between a Shadows of the Colossus meets Zelda, with a little bit more of an emphasis on combat. But particularly in the Unreal 5 demo that they showed, they were talking about the use of like how the engine supports like temperature change and reaction between like environments of between the elements, reaction between the elements. So like, how within the engine fire works like fire, which sounds simple, but I'm sure, and Phil and I were discussing this before we started recording, but I'm sure for like a gamer, it's like, yeah, fire burns things. That's how it works, and it's worked that way in video games for some time. But from the developer standpoint, it's like all of like fire affecting things, you had to go in and program that instead of an engine knowing how to react when fire meets this substance, or if this area is frozen, what is the fauna, how does the fauna respond to being frozen and stuff like that. So it was interesting, but I guess with all of the Unreal 5 demos that I've been seeing, it just kind of felt like, oh, this is cool, but it seems like a feature and not, I don't know. I wasn't blown away by this developer diary. What did you think, Phil?
Well, I gotta say, I very much enjoy when like elemental things react in video games.
Yeah.
I think Breath of the Wild did a really great job, and again, like they did that with the magic of fitting it onto a Switch cartridge. But just, I think that creates like a lot of interesting story things. One of the first times I remember that happening was Far Cry 2, when you could start a fire and it would spread, and then you didn't know that it was like, and you turn around and be like, oh crap, this whole hill's on fire. But one of the things that I really loved in Breath of the Wild was you could start a fire and then jump and use your kite, and the updraft of the hot air would carry you into the air. And I think more games doing things like that, like allowing us to think outside of the box by using kind of elements that should be there, but sometimes don't get translated because of like game logic and game mechanics. Finding sort of a little bit more one-to-one parity with how things should work, so that you don't need necessarily know how to be good at the game as much as if you're just creative, you can figure out solutions to your problems.
Do you think like that is because a lot of times when you're developing a game, you have an engine, but then you also have a physics engine, and you're using two different programs instead of using one. Yeah. And so, it's, those systems don't always talk perfectly. And so I guess the more of those systems and things that they can dump into Unreal 5, the more things should start behaving how we would expect them to behave in, not necessarily real life, but, in a naturalistic way.
Yeah.
Of being like, yeah, I can make a fire and do the Zelda thing. And, if they did that, if they made Zelda in Unreal 5, please God, I know it'll never happen, but come on.
Someone's going to do it. Someone's going to mod it.
I mean, they already exist. They already exist. They are already out there. Ocarina of Time and Unreal 5. I've seen recent shots.
Well,
so
I just like that. I mean, I think it's something to celebrate that one engine is kind of like able to pull everything in, and like Unreal 5 seems to be doing that. Everything I see about Unreal 5 makes it look better and better until we get Unreal 6. But what's also, I mean, I don't know if I haven't heard of much of a fan thing about Unreal 5, because I feel like whenever a game is made in Unreal 5, they put it on the box, but it's never a huge selling point. I kind of wonder if there's people who like don't like the Unreal Engine and like turn their noses up at it. I've not heard of anything like that, but I just am very far on the opposite end of like, oh, a game in Unreal 5? That makes me kind of interested, because I know it's going to look great, I feel like it makes the turnaround times on games a lot shorter. One of my one of my Game of the Year candidates last year, what was it? It was a third-person shooter. I'm looking through my Steam right now to see if I have it installed still. I don't know if I do. But it was built completely in Unreal 5, and it was gorgeous and played well, and it turned around like 3 years from when the original came out. So I think hopefully this could be a thing of like solving, we're talking about this more a little bit later, but solving the like investment stuff and time investment when it comes into game making, where if there's a tool that can make it simpler and make our vision easier to expand upon, heck yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd still, I'd still like to see competition. Again, competition is going to drive innovation, is the theory at least. So I know that, Unity has taken a big hit with it changing, but it just seems like Unreal 5 is the number one engine right now. And it doesn't really seem like anybody else has an engine that can compete with it. I mean, maybe EA with Frostbite.
True, Frostbite is good.
But I feel like they really haven't had some games that have come out on Frostbite. Although, I don't know, perhaps the Star Wars game that we're going to discuss for our main topic is on Frostbite. I'm not sure. So,
well, there's Capcom has a pretty unique one that they've been using for all of their games lately. That's pretty good looking. Seems to work pretty well. That said, we're forgetting and omitting the very powerful Creation engine from Bethesda. They need to get a new engine. Yeah.
Oh my God! Yes, they do.
Please use Unreal 5, Todd. This is us reaching out through the internet, trying to convince you. Don't use yours anymore. It's real bad now.
It's just yeah. Move on. All right. So, speaking of moving on, let's move on. So Fortnite.
It's a good segue.
Yeah, thank you. Fortnite is having a Last Airbender event, Avatar Last Airbender event, which is exciting. There's a lot of people who are on the Last Airbender train right now, especially with Netflix's live action
remake
adventure.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been a lot of complaints from fans because they did like a Legend of Korra update to Fortnite a while ago, and like they had it like a glider where it didn't look like Korra was actually riding the glider, and this and that. And so a lot of fans were complaining about the aesthetic of the content. And so they've added a glider for Aang, and that is Appa, and you actually ride on top of Appa. So that is pretty darn cool. Although I will say it looks a little bit like the animation of Goku riding on his Nimbus Cloud, I want to say.
Is it like him standing on it?
Yeah, Aang is like standing on the saddle as opposed to like sitting like with the reins like on his neck where he would usually sit. And then Appa is like not the right size. So we'll see how people feel about this. But yeah, another Fortnite update. They're going to keep them pumping. Whatever's popular, it's going to come to Fortnite. Believe you me. So
very true. Very true. Listen, I play Fortnite still. Very excited for this. Super ready. Right now they have that and Invincible in the storefront. And like between those two things, I'm like, yeah, I'm very interested in all this. Although I don't think I'm going to spend no Fortnite money. Yeah, I think I've seen Avatar kind of pop up in a lot of different free-to-play games. What's another one? There's one's like a battling of gods. It's like a third-person MOBA. That one had an Avatar crossover. I know there's sort of like a free-to-play Smash type game or Smash Brothers type game that had Avatar crossovers. So good to see them in everything. I will say that the visuals for this, like the set of in-game characters, is getting better for anime, because the Dragon Ball Z ones, when they launched, heads were completely the wrong size, and you can get headshots by shooting them in their giant hair. So
oh wow, interesting. Interesting.
It became a liability to play with those characters. Do you think this is enough to make you want to try Fortnite?
No.
Okay.
I have tried Fortnite, but no. I don't know. I'm good.
Fair enough.
If like a group of friends wanted to play Fortnite, I wouldn't be the party pooper and be like, no, I'm not playing Fortnite. But it's just not interesting enough for me to if I want that competitive experience, like I'm probably logging back into the finals or something like that. Just for me personally.
Yeah. Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah. All right. Pressing along, Palworld has been getting a series of updates. Most of these updates have been quality of life updates, just because of how glitchy the game launched at. I do know that there has been one content update for the game, adding a new boss and some new characters and whatnot. But most recently, the most recent update is actually not working great on Xbox consoles, in that it is messing up your saved games, particularly saved multiplayer games. So games that like when you have a server or something like that. So it's kind of been fragmenting the save, which is obviously not good because Palworld is a game that takes a lot of time to get things done. So there have been a lot of frustrated players out there, and the Palworld developers have specifically released on their social medias, and they're just like, do not play your multiplayer game until we update this again, because you risk contaminating your save, and then after that we don't know if we can fix it. So if you are still on the Palworld train right now is a good time to take a break and come back after the next update, particularly if you are on Xbox. So when's the last time you thought about Palworld, Phil?
Oh, probably last week. A friend of mine has picked up Palworld. He picked up like an Xbox just to get it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm like, I should play that with him. But then I was like, there's too many other good games right now. I'll come back to Palworld. I feel like the more time I spend away from Palworld, the better it's going to be when I come back, because they will have updated it. And I will have forgotten about it and be like, oh, this is a great thing. So, yeah, I think my time for Palworld is going to come back sometime around like July, maybe June, where I'll be like, yeah, let's go. Or if they make some big announcement where like, we got Pikachu in this one now. Suck it, Game Freak.
Oh, man. Yeah, all right. Very, very cool that people are still into Palworld. I actually thought about this game recently as well. And I thought about jumping back in, but after I saw this news, I believe it was yesterday, I was like, oh, I guess I'll wait. Even though even though I play it on PC instead of Xbox.
Same.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to coming back to it. And, you were talking about like this little drop off of, we've had all these good games at the beginning of the year. We don't know how May's really going to look, to be honest. There's a lot of like loosey-goosey release dates for a lot of games this year. So it's a bunch of like, oh, it's going to come out in this quarter, maybe. And so we don't really know what game releases look like for the rest of this year. So I'm sure there's going to be some dead time where Palworld is going to pick back up again if they can launch with some content.
Yes. Yeah, I think if they play their cards right and hit at the exact right moment, they're going to get that second like wave of Palworld news and excitement. But yeah.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, let's talk about another game that's coming out later this year, or rather the developer.
Yes.
The new Warhammer third-person action game. What is the title? Warhammer
Space Marine
2 is on its way. But Saber Interactive has some things to say about the price of games. They say that the $70 price for video games might be a thing of the past relatively soon. Go the way of the dinosaur, I believe was the exact quote. Hey, correct me if I'm wrong here, Paul, but weren't games just $60 and now they're $70?
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. So he's saying $70, not really a realistic price point, because the cost of making games is getting so expensive. And part of me is like, he's right. It is getting expensive, especially with more and more game developers, the employees wanting to unionize and stuff like that, which I fully support. But then the costs are gonna go up. So I was thinking about it this week, and I remember when I was a little kid, and I had a PlayStation 1, and I remember going to the store, like the video store, which used to be a thing. And I was looking at, I remember, like, it's burned into my memory for whatever reason, but I remember seeing Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped on sale for $40. And I was thinking about that. And it's like, that was a long time ago. That was probably like 20 years ago, maybe more. And probably more than 20 years ago, actually. And it was $40 then. And we got a price increase from that to, like, was it $50 for the, do you remember, like, the generational prices, I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
I'm looking at a thing right now. So in the early 70s on the Atari and the 2600 when they launched, the average game cost was around $40. If you did that out to 2020 numbers, it'd be like $150 almost.
Wow.
Let's see, Nintendo, the SNES jumped it up to 45. Or so that was just the regular NES. And they were kind of around $50 for a while. I think even up through like the Nintendo 64 Dreamcast era games were $50.
I think the PS3 Xbox 360 started the $60. Yeah.
That's about when it happened. Yeah, that's when they jumped up to $60 for a new game. And in today's money, that was around $76. This was in 2006.
Yeah, so that's in 2006. They jumped up to 60, and then the PS4, Xbox One era, stayed at 60, but what we started seeing them at that time period was the kind of transition of, like, we need more microtransactions. We see it working in World of Warcraft. We need to put it in other games, and so you started seeing that, and they started looking for alternatives, to regulate the price. And I don't want to pay more for video games than I do. I don't. But I get, like, I see everything else getting more expensive. And games, from the point of, like, when I was a kid looking at a Crash Bandicoot CD in a store and it was $40, and now a game's only $30 more. And it's like, and just doing, like you were talking about, $40 back then is like close to $150, today. It's just kind of like, I think he's right. And I think, like, if you're releasing a $70 single player game, you better be sure that it's going to sell over a certain amount in order to get your return. Because like I know that God of War Ragnarok was not an inexpensive game to make. True. I'm sure they made money on it, but I'm sure they're like, if we don't sell this many millions of copies, this is not going to be worth it. So, I think that, go ahead.
My counterpoint is, like, games have been getting more expensive for a while in the form of microtransactions, additional character things. They are like additional pieces of content, all this stuff. And granted, not everyone buys those, but they are making them so ubiquitous that it's like a lot easier to buy those things. Fortnite, for example, it sells battle passes, all these things that kind of increase the price of. Granted, Fortnite's a free-to-play game, but there are a lot of ways that they can kind of entice you with more content and up the price of the game. So I think there's something to that, at least that's been going on for a while. On the other hand, you also have great games that release for less than $60 even. And I think that's sort of where we need to understand things like, okay, some games will cost $90 for the complete edition, $90 for the full product. or even more in some cases, with season pass, all this stuff. But it's also okay for some games to be less and maybe move a little bit more because they're cheaper. And you know it's a tough thing because how do you ever know like how much money a game can make? But I
Right.
think if Larian can make money selling a $60 game that they worked on for however many years, again, that's a very extreme example.
Sure.
I don't, I don't know. I just think like modulating the price in games is going to just result in less game sales, because one of the things that has made gaming so easy for people to get into is the price tag being around $60 when everything else is so expensive. In terms of the amount of entertainment you get out for that $60, it seems like a no thought, like, oh yeah, I should buy that. It's well worth it.
Right.
Then when you add in those microtransactions, that's where you get people, and people get upset about them. But ultimately, people are buying them because they keep putting them in games. So I think
Right.
there's a way to get around it.
I think that's a great point. I think the distinction that I would make is that I'm talking about like single player games, or like I guess what I'm really thinking about with this, because Saber Interactive, I'm thinking of Space Marine 1.
Yeah.
And so for Space Marine 1, I believe it came out $60. It had a multiplayer mode and it had a full campaign. And so it's like, look at Dragon's Dogma 2. Like, it's a single player game. It's $70. And they found another way to incorporate microtransactions
Yeah.
in the game. And so it's like, it's, trying to compare like how a $70 game makes its money versus like a free to play or a Fortnite, is kind of, it's not like the same discussion. And so like, I guess the solution would be like, release Space Marine at $70 and then put microtransactions into the multiplayer that it has. Like, do something that way.
I feel like that would work. Like, sell skins, sell whatever you need to sell to sort of, because the deal is they're not making, I guess, $10 more off of everyone, but they're making more people are going to buy like this certain skin, that certain skin. Helldivers is another great example of like, okay, we released a game that people want to play, and we're giving like more things that we've developed and worked on, but that like is people can buy in based on their interest.
Yeah. And
I
like,
yeah, I like it as a platform,
honestly, like Helldivers, I've spent $70. It's a $40 game, but I've spent 70 on it. I spent the original 40, and then I liked it so much I upgraded to the deluxe edition for 20, and then I bought $10 of their currency. So like, and that's a good way to do it, because like you said, you're buying into the level of interest that you have. I think that his comment is more like, if we're making these epic single player adventure games where microtransactions do not, it's like, we can't integrate them in a way that we're afraid to integrate them in a single player game that will frustrate players. If we can't do that, we have to charge more up front. And so I see the business side of that, but yeah, it's $80 for a video game. Whew.
It hurts.
Yeah.
I think the other thing about gamers too is like, I don't know if this is the case for everyone. It's just me projecting my experience, but there's so many video game sales that I feel like I'll see on Reddit people like, oh yeah, I'll wait for that to go on PS Plus, or wait for that to go on sale. And that is how a lot of people interact with something like, oh, that one is worth to me about $40. And the games typically go down to that price point within a couple of months. Ubisoft is famous for doing it. So I think that's the other kind of self-defeating part of this is, sure, you'll get a chunk of people to buy an $80 game, but a lot of people are going to wait till it comes down to $50 or $40,
Yeah. Just look at Mortal Kombat right now.
Exactly.
All right. So we're talking a lot about pricing. So let's get into our main topic. Phil, why don't you start us off a little bit with what Star Wars Outlaws pricing seems to be, and then we'll just expand from there.
Yeah. So similarly noted, this game is launching at $70, $69.99. Star Wars Outlaws is something, we're all pretty looking forward to it. It's a new Star Wars game, very different take. EA, applaud you for making something new. Their gold edition is $109, which kind of sticks on track. I feel like for you would buy a $60 game and get the thing that came with everything for $100. Yeah. I don't see what's in the gold edition, because just below that there is an ultimate edition that is $130, and it comes with the game, season pass, and all of the different bundles and 3-day early access and all of this stuff.
Have they talked about what kind of seasons pass or what kind of content is coming to that at all? Or
I don't think they've talked about the season pass, at least not that I can see here.
Right.
I'm sure they'll have some story stuff, some go to this planet, do this thing, and maybe a hut based interaction. But sure. Man, you know what would be really cool if you had to steal from the Millennium Falcon. You had to do a mission where you had to steal from Han Solo.
Yeah, well, it's based in that time frame, so that makes
some work.
Sense.
But it's an interesting thing. $130 is a lot for everything to do with a game. And with a big company like EA, I think I understand more where Saber's coming from, of being hey, listen, we're just kind of a small company doing our best. But EA, eat some of the costs to build your brand, okay? You gotta buy some brand loyalty back, please.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, but I don't think this is an EA game.
It's not EA? Maybe I'm
I think actually this is a Ubisoft game.
That's right.
This game is actually going to be launched on Ubisoft Plus, which marks the first game coming to Ubisoft Plus that is maybe worth looking at. So,
whoa. Okay, I forgot. A Ubisoft game. Interesting.
Yes.
Same note, though. They have enough money. They've made $1 billion Assassin's Creed.
Do they? Because they just launched a quadruple A game that didn't sell at all. So
they're out here making quadruple A games. They could take. They don't need to charge $130 for this one. But all of that to the side, I'm very excited for it, and the trailer that was released today was pretty interesting. What are your initial thoughts on it? I know you're a big Star Wars head.
I'm a big Star Wars head, and it looms so close to my heart that I judge it so harshly. I think it looks good. I'm a little bit because it was a story trailer that released today, and so we got a lot of like a movie trailer, these are some of the scenes, and this is what's going on, and you see the main character interacting with a lot of the galactic cartels and stuff like that. And so that's all very cool. There's no Jedi, so I don't like when Star Wars games do that, where they're just we're just committing to the Han Solo bit. It's like Han Solo is an element of Star Wars. He's not Star Wars completely, in my opinion. And but whatever, I can let that go. I'm a little concerned with the lack of characters around the main character. And maybe there are more characters that are around the main character, but from right now, it's there's this decommissioned Trade Federation droid or separatist droid that you have. And then there's your pet, which is, I'm sure, Disney was if you're going to make a Star Wars game, you have to have some cute fuzzy thing that we can sell as a plushie. So I'm a little concerned that we won't get, good character development. And, that's not usually my concern in most games, but it's if this is a single player game that's focusing heavily on this very, movie driven kind of Uncharted style narrative, you have to have a cast, of characters. And I think that you really got that in Jedi Survivor, where you've had the feel of okay, this is my team, this is my squad, and I have relationships that mean different things to Cal, the main character. And I haven't really gotten any of that sense from this game, other than I would say the game for right now looks a little bit more Disneyland and a little less Star Wars to me. And what I mean by that is kind of like how a lot of people criticize Marvel. And like I really like Marvel. I'm not a fan of their most recent things, but like when people say it's like, it feels like, it's about the wow factor. It's not about the story it's telling. And it's like, I want the wow factor to be in the game. It's a video game. You got to have some wow factor in there. But like, if this is the game you're making, there better be a good narrative with character progression. And I'm also kind of concerned that like, we got a trailer for this last year, and then we got this story trailer, and something we haven't mentioned yet is we got a release date for the game. And that is August 30th this year. That is in 4 months. And like, for a game being 4 months out, you would think that there would be more information about it. So, maybe Ubisoft is trying to lean back, or maybe, Disney is involved in their marketing plan or whatever.
Well, I feel like when you've got a big IP like this, you can kind of like, people are going to be interested. So you can hold back a little bit. You can wait until like a month out, because the same thing happened for like the Marvel Endgame, all those things. They didn't want to tell us anything up until, and I think that's when they learned they could kind of get away with that, of like, oh, we don't really need to promote this. People are interested. That only worked with like huge fandoms. I feel like Star Wars and Marvel stuff. So I've got some more information on the season pass and what it gets you.
Yes, please.
It includes 2 upcoming story pack DLCs, plus day 1 exclusive Jabba's Gambit mission. So something to do with Jabba.
You called it. You called it.
I saw him in the trailer. I was like, we gotta play with Jabba. I want to be able to pet him. Plus, Kessel Runner cosmetics, which just make you look like Han Solo. All of the cosmetics are kind of like, one makes you look like Lando, the other one makes you look like a rebel, and it makes your ship look like their ships. It's just like very, I guess the good part is that your little Newt dog thing also gets the cosmetic bonuses, so you get to dress him up as well. But I will say, from the trailer, the sort of impression that I got, and maybe something they could do with their marketing going forward, is it looked like she was assembling a team to do like this big job type thing. And if you could give me some of that Mass Effect 2 style, like you put a team together to do something important, you have to do loyalty missions for them. I think that would be interesting, especially for like a more heisty related game. And maybe they could release trailers over time to be like, all right, you've seen the cool robot 6520 or whatever. Here's a little, here's actual, what is it, Guido? I always call him Guido, but it's not.
Greedo?
Greedo. Here's actual Greedo. He survived, and he's ready to get back to work.
Oh my god.
I think maybe that's what they could be doing, just because it seemed like there was kind of like a team in the trailer, or I don't know.
Yeah, no, and like, I don't know either, and we're kind of in a position right now where we have to speculate, because again, there's just not been a lot of stuff that's been discussed about the game. We just really have 2 looks at it. We have the original video that came out where we have some gameplay, and then we have this story trailer. So, I'm very curious about it. It's definitely got my attention. I think it looks good. But yeah, I will say that my personal Star Wars pessimism always looms when there is some sort of Star Wars IP on the horizon, especially when it's like, oh, this is in between the era, it's in between movies 5 and 6, and it's like, yes, you're doing that so nothing of consequence can happen.
Yeah.
And it's just like, can you do, like, I am a little bit more excited for like the Star Wars Acolyte show, because it's like, this is before everything. I was like, thank God, give your writers some flexibility. Like,
they have agency. It's like Knights of the Republic. Important things can happen because everyone will be dead by the
Yes.
time the stuff we know about happens. Okay. This is crazy. If you get the Ultimate Edition on Ubisoft Plus, it's $17.99 a month. This is why I think Ubisoft has so much money. You can play it for 1 month for $18. You'll get the 3-day early access. You'll get everything that comes with the game if you just get Ubisoft Plus.
I mean, if it's a single player, can't you beat the game in a month? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's probably what I'm going to do.
Probably what you should do. That's what I'm going to do. For $18, even if I play it for 2 months, even if I don't finish it and I have to come back and it costs me 2 months worth of $36, yeah.
Well, they could be using this as like their this is our flagship Ubisoft Plus game. This is like, we've launched Ubisoft Plus obviously before in the past, but this is the game that's going to get us subscribers. And hopefully they forget that it's charging their credit card.
Yeah.
And, that's what they're hoping for. Yeah, that's
I mean, first of all, Rocket Money will solve all of those problems. Rocket Money, please pay us. I've seen your commercial in every YouTube video. Just give us some money to talk about it. Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy. They also had that with noted quadruple A game. I forgot the title of.
Skull and Bones.
Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones was like, they launched. Oh, you could get it for $18. You get everything in the game for as long as you want to play it. Similarly, Prince of Persia launched on it, and I feel like they were trying. Those were the games that they were like, look at this new service. Isn't this wacky? I don't know. I'm very interested with what their whole sort of gambit is with Ubisoft Plus and their pricing going forward. And I think my Star Wars pessimism is a little high, but I know it's going to be a day one for me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're going to have to talk about it on the podcast. I love Star Wars. I mean, there's a lot of Star Wars stuff that I, watch or participate in begrudgingly because I still, at my core, I still love it. Mm-hmm. And so, like, this is going to be another thing for that. I mean, but, like, if what you just said is, like, if I can just play this on Ubisoft Plus, I might just do that. Because I don't know if it's going to be a good enough single player game that I'm going to want to come back for it. And I think that's probably their strategy with the season's pass. And it's like, oh, these are the new missions. You got to come back for another month, to play this DLC. Haha. And so I don't know.
Yeah. One point about what you were saying is they have a list of characters on their website. They have K Vess, Nyx, this is a little newt dog, ND5, that cool robot we were talking about, 2 bad guys, and then and more in another square.
Wait, it says 2. It can't say 2 bad guys.
No, it says their name is Jalen, Vrax, and Slero. So they have a list of 5 characters. And then and more. And you can't click on and more. Which I thought was just funny considering your point of like, if it's a very story driven game, you gotta be willing to show us a lot of characters, right?
Yeah, you gotta have a cast. Like something okay, this will be a good place to end it, I think. Like a distinction between Marvel 1943, even in the limited footage that we got for that game, and this game, is that in Marvel 1943, what did they show us? They showed us important characters interacting with each other. Yeah. As opposed to in this trailer that we got today, it's like, I'm telling you about events that are happening across the galaxy. And so
and very generic shots of like
it's generic. It's generic because they're so I'm concerned.
Best case scenario, they're holding it tight, close to the chest, close to the vest. I don't know which is the actual term, but it's a little concerning. It's going to be an interesting episode. Let's do this now and come back to it.
Ooh, okay.
Some sort of prediction. I don't know. We have to decide on what the prediction is going to be, and this is dumb of me to say, but based, just overall quality. What do you think this game will get like review wise when it comes out?
This is hard because
tough.
I do believe that some gaming journalism is a little corrupt and they do get bought off a little bit. So I'm gonna say for the big outlets, 8 out of 10. I'm gonna say average 7 out of 10, and I think kids will like it. I think kids will like it a lot, and so you might have a little bit of pushback of where, like, I think with Suicide Squad got a little bit of pushback where there is an audience for Suicide Squad, even though the entire internet like crapped on it. But there are people, and especially in the younger audience, who enjoy Suicide Squad. So, but yeah, I don't trust Ubisoft telling a story, and I would love to be proved wrong, but just in buying the most recent Far Cry and how blech that was, and playing Skull and Bones, I've had some fun with it, but there's no freaking story at all, and it's not.
Prince of Persia was the same way. There was too like convoluted and like what?
There's no story, because I feel like when their writing teams write, they're writing for missions. They're not writing for an overarching story. And again, they haven't really done a game like this before, so I'm willing to I will give you my full attention. But I think it's probably a 7. It's it does look really good graphically. It looks really good. Will it run that well? I don't know. What do you think?
I think we're gonna not that Ubisoft is known for this, but I think just because it's Star Wars, and I feel like it has been the case, we're gonna hit some performance issues that will drag this down to like low 7, maybe high 6 average.
Wow. All right.
And yeah, I think there will be a lot of people freaking out when the game comes out about a female protagonist in a Star Wars game, which I think is gonna, like, much like it did with the Marvels, just like get this weird negative like headspace around it, depending on if they could advertise enough around it. So I think its Metacritic will be somewhere like 72. If they can live up to what they've like said the game is going to be, and like at least 80% of it, for Phil it will be a solid 8.5, because this is my type of game, like covert action, character driven. But I'm guessing maybe the open world fatigue will be setting in at that time as well. And to have a Star Wars game with no Jedi is also just a little, I think Jedi Survivor got, like, though it had some issues, though it had this, it's just fun to be a Jedi. It's just fun to be like
fun to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
It's almost like what Star Wars is about. Like,
there's a reason that the main character in the first movie happened to be a Jedi and not Han Solo.
All right, yeah. Let's leave it there. We have a lot of feelings. Hopefully, there will be more information that comes out about Star Wars Outlaws, and so we could judge it more accurately and critically without having to do so much speculation. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it for this week. Thank you for listening to the GGG Podcast. Phil and I actually did an interview recently with a good friend of mine. His name is Austin, and he is a employee at Obsidian Entertainment, who is working on the Outer Worlds 2 right now. So be looking out for that episode when we publish it. Talked about some cool game development stuff in there. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Trying to get those subscribers up. The likes help us out as well. And if you're listening to the audio version, either on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave us a review or a like over there as well. So, yeah, I'll leave you with that. Have a good one, Phil. I'll see you next week.
I'll see you next week, buddy. Let's make sure the automatons don't come back too hard.
We gotta hold the line, man.
We gotta hold the line. All right.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.